Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast, Bioprocessing Technologies, Key Considerations in Choosing Stainless Steel versus Single-Use Bioprocessing. I'm Tim Wright, editor of Contract Pharma, and our webcast today is being sponsored by Samsung Biologics, a fully integrated CDMO offering state-of-the-art contract development, manufacturing, and laboratory testing services. With proven regulatory approvals, large capacity, and fast throughput, Samsung Biologics is an award-winning partner of choice and is uniquely able to support the development and manufacturing of biologics products at every stage of the process while meeting the evolving needs of biopharmaceutical companies worldwide. For more information, visit samsungbiologics.com. Our speaker today is Justin Carbungco. He's the group leader of manufacturing operations for Samsung Biologics' small-scale manufacturing organization. Justin is an operations professional with 15 years of biotech and manufacturing experience and currently manages the upstream operations and downstream operations for the two small-scale drug substance cGMP manufacturing facilities at Samsung Biologics. Prior to this role, he led the tech transfer team for Contract Manufacturing Organization 1's cell culture group at Samsung Biologics and oversaw compliance activities within manufacturing, supported in regulatory inspections, was involved with the execution of tech transfer, and led data integrity initiatives for manufacturing operations. Justin also has extensive experience from prior operational roles at Genentech and Pakira Pharmaceuticals. Today, Justin is going to go over the strengths of stainless steel production and how Samsung Biologics' platform can support client product manufacturing. We will be accepting questions throughout the talk. You can send those in using the box at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be answered after the presentation in a brief Q&A, and this presentation will be archived on our website, contractpharma.com, for 1 year. If you're experiencing any tech difficulties, you can type those into the question box as well, and someone on the back end here will help you out. At this point, I'll turn it over to you, Justin.
All right. Hello, my name is Justin Carbungco, and as stated before, I work at Samsung Biologics. So we'll go ahead and jump into the presentation. The main topic we'll be talking about is key considerations in choosing stainless steel versus single-use bioprocessing, and kind of the robustness that stainless steel has proven in regards to the pandemic that we've been going through for the past year and a half. So the first idea or topic you want to consider when you're looking at this is it's a matter of choice. So when we're looking in choice, your main two technologies that you're looking at are single-use and stainless steel when it comes to bioprocessing. Over the course of this page, we'll kind of go over the differences between single-use bioreactors and stainless steel bioreactors. So for the first step, we'll kind of go over COGS. In regards to single-use bioreactors, the main benefit is the reduced utility for maintenance. Because of the single-use systems, you just have to do setup and then disable. Afterwards, you don't have to do any type of cleaning verification, CIPs, SIPs. On the back end, though, it comes up with a high usage of consumables because of the disposable manners of all the equipment. Stainless steel is the opposite. There's high utility maintenance. In regards to electricity, you have to have water systems, gas supply systems to manage a lot more of the higher robust processes that could be utilized with stainless steel. On the other hand, it does require less consumables. Typically, your consumables will only consider single-use filters and maybe sample apparatuses and additional systems for additives. The next thing to consider is plant footprint. Single-use bioreactors have a very flexible infrastructure. Because of the low footprint that they can have for a facility, you can fit a lot more and also accommodate a lot more in terms of different types of processes. Stainless steel, on the other hand, is very fixed infrastructure. However, because of the larger infrastructure, you can accommodate larger processes. And there's a huge example in regards to scale. As you can see, for single-use bioreactors, 20 liter to 5,000 liter is your typical scales for single use, whereas with stainless steel, you can go upwards up to 20,000 liters at certain facilities. Now, when we're talking about operational friendliness, it's how you're able to work with those systems. Single use is flexible, has higher quick turnover, because you're not required to do CIPs and SIPs and product changeovers from campaign to campaign and product to product. Typically only have to change out the type of consumables that was used for that product and remove them from the facility, and then reintegrate the consumables that you'll need for the next campaign. Stainless steel, on the other hand, is more stable and robust and accommodate more processes, but it does have a slower turnover. You typically have to do CIPs and SIPs in between, checks and balances to determine there's no cross-contamination from your previous campaign to your next campaign. Another thing to consider is the environment. When it comes to single-use bioreactors, the disposable waste is coming a lot from the consumables themselves. Plastic bags, plastic tubing, disposable apparatuses. Stainless steel, on the other hand, has a lot of water and chemical discharge waste. And that's typically coming from a lot of the CIPs that you'll be running in between process to process. Now, to kind of simplify the key question, when you're kind of choosing between single use and stainless steel, single use, you're typically going to have a higher operational cost. Though your benefit is that your initial capital cost is going to be a lot less. Stainless steel is the opposite. Your initial capital cost will be a lot higher for setting up the facility. However, your operational cost over time will be a lot more manageable. So moving on to the next page, we'll take a look at some key considerations to choose the optimal process between the two different technologies. I summarized it into 5 different categories: capacity, scalability, flexibility, cost, and supply chain management. So when we're taking a look at capacity, pre-commercial still dominates over 85% of the use when it comes to single-use systems. And that's mostly because of upstream titers going up as the development of products is becoming more and more refined. We're seeing a lot of increased adoption of single-use systems at smaller production scale. However, the practicality of use for single-use systems versus stainless steel is a lot more troublesome when it goes to higher levels of scale, typically around 5,000 or more. Another key aspect when you're thinking in terms of capacity is that for the downstream, there was also slower adoption for single-use systems. And the reason being is that the yields that you'll get from downstream has not been increasing in the same rate when compared to upstream titers. So downstream is a little bit farther behind in terms of single-use system adoption, and stainless is still the most reliable source, even at small scales. Now, in terms of scalability, single-use systems generally is used for smaller scale capacity. On the opposite end, stainless is still leading the charge for large-scale manufacturing. Still cost-effective and can go as low as $60 to $100 per gram for large-scale production. So again, when it comes to scalability, it kind of really depends on what your target market is or at what point of development of your product is needed. Small scale, you can go with single-use systems. With large scale, you're typically going to be pushing more towards stainless steel. Now, in terms of flexibility, single-use systems probably are confined to mammalian cell culture. That's just because of the systems in the bags and the process itself. You're dealing with a lot of disposables, so you're not going to have the same robust controls compared to stainless steel when it comes to like temperature controls or process or pressure output and flow rates, etc., etc. Single-use systems, though, allow for flexibility to accommodate varying process designs. It's modular and plug-and-play capabilities. So because stainless steel is in a fixed infrastructure, you typically have to choose products that can fit that infrastructure. Whereas with single-use systems, depending on what single-use systems you have available, you can make the process fit the product more easily. Now we'll take a look into cost. So, cost of goods, labor, and utilities. Cost of goods is very self-explanatory. It's your consumables. Obviously, we've already stated single-use systems is going to have a higher cost of goods when it comes to disposables, whereas with stainless steel, it's going to have a lower cost of goods. Labor can be looked at in one of two ways. When it comes to single-use systems, the majority of your labor is going to be coming from setting up the systems and procuring a lot of the materials, whereas with stainless steel, your maintenance is going to be spread out across the entire process. Minimal setup time because the infrastructure is already set up, and then at the same time, consistent distribution of labor throughout the entire process. Again, as we mentioned before, utilities in terms of maintenance and between single-use and stainless steel. Single-use has little lower cost of maintenance compared to stainless steel because of the disposables. Stainless steel, you'll still need to maintain your CIPs, your SIPs, cleaning validations. There's a lot more that goes into it in terms of maintaining the facility as a whole. One of the big things to also consider is single-use costs associated to improvements. Now, what I mean by this is that stainless steel has been the main technology in pharma for a very long period of time. So there's already a lot of facilities that already incorporate stainless steel as part of their main process. In order for a company or a manufacturer to switch over from stainless steel to single use, there's a very high reinvestment that that company would need to do in order to make that system work. A lot of those things come from validation studies that would need to be re-executed for the new processes, additional regulatory filings, because processes associated with stainless steel, and to convert it to single use, you would need to reapply for a regulatory release. Also, you need to be considered is costly testing. So checking for leachables, extractables, those type of things. And also the re-execution or generation or revision of new documentation, such as SOPs and manufacturing batch records associated to processes. Now we'll also take a look into supply chain management. Stainless obviously is less dependent on consumables, whereas with single use is highly dependent on consumables. Both require a very robust supply chain management. However, single-use systems require even more so when compared to stainless steel. The reason being is that your single-use systems, your supply chain is pretty much your lifeline. If your supplies are not coming in a consistent and reliable manner, it's going to impact your manufacturing schedule, and your drugs are not going to be able to make it to market in time. Stainless steel is still dependent, but they're not as dependent. In addition, stainless steel also has the benefit that since that technology has been around for such a long period of time, there are methods and procedures that we can reverse back to, such as an example, single-use sample assemblies that's very popular currently right now. If for some reason we're not able to utilize those anymore, we can revert back to SIPing, say, glass bottles onto the systems themselves and not impact the manufacturing schedule moving forward. All right, so one of the biggest topics, probably for everyone in the industry and everybody around the world, has been COVID-19. Obviously, our industry has been impacted by this, and more so in terms of, from my own experience, in regards to our supply chain. we'll kind of cover some of the key observations that I've seen in terms of this pandemic and how it affected us as a whole for the industry. So from the onset of the pandemic, moving forward, we saw a high demand for consumables. This was a very drastic increase that was seen throughout the industry. And then demand from the competitors was made to safeguard the manufacturing schedule. So what this kind of entails is that because of the COVID social distancing policies that were implemented around the world, a lot of our vendors and manufacturers had to abide by those type of initiatives. That decreased the workforce in order to manufacture these goods, which led to a smaller supply or drastic delay in terms of being able to get these. What that went into was a lot of procurement was made for hoarding a lot of these materials. So ordering a lot of things prior and very far in advance to make sure that their manufacturing schedules over the course during the pandemic were not as impacted. This led to longer estimated lead times by a lot of the vendors. Typical lead times before the pandemic for long lead time items, such as, say, resin for downstream operations, was about 6 months. Now, because of the COVID pandemic, longest raw material lead times escalated to about 12 to 18 months. In addition, a lot of processes could not fully confirm duration for tech transfers unless the BOM was established and raw material lead times were checked prior to even initiating the tech transfers. This also led for a strong push and consideration for off-the-shelf items versus customized items that usually require excessively long lead times. This was applied to both the clinical development and also for certain parts of manufacturing. One of the other things to consider too in regards to highlighting these demands was actually the implementation when vaccines started to become available to fight back against COVID. Because the priority was for COVID vaccines, manufacturers who already had a long lead times and reduced supply for consumable items had shifted priorities towards companies that were manufacturing COVID vaccines. This kind of snowballed into making it harder for commercial and even harder for clinical development to be able to get the supplies that they needed for their manufacturing. Now, when we're taking a look at other impacts and what we can learn from COVID-19 is that COVID-19 was only one aspect. This could also happen from other unexpected events, such as natural disasters, other pandemics, trade wars, company closures, etc. So a strong supply chain management is critical to secure the correct consumables and also having backup plans to make sure that you have alternative methods to make sure that your manufacturing schedule is not impacted, such as having backups, having Kanban systems set in place so that your supply chain isn't as impacted, and also alternative methods for consumables. Now we'll take a look into some aspects in terms of continued need for stainless steel processes. And this is mostly coming from observations from COVID and also from the industry. Now, if we take a look at single-use applications in biomanufacturing, perfusion devices and bioreactors are some of the main big key items. As you can see from this graph, been relatively slow adoption of single-use bioprocesses for commercial scale bioreactors and for the perfusion process. Take a look at perfusion. It's only had a 28% adoption rate, and for bioreactors, a 35% adoption rate for commercial production. The large upticks are coming from your small scale clinical production and then also from your process development. So to kind of sum it up, there is still always going to be a continual demand for stainless steel processing. If you take a look at the global bioreactor market size growth, it's been about 48%. Back in 2019, you had about $1,320.14 million USD in the market, with an estimated growth to $1,953.84 million USD by 2025. This is also being pushed because of raw material lead time increases. Obviously, this will start to go down and normalize after the COVID-19 impact, but it's kind of highlighting kind of the considerations that we need to for single-use systems over stainless steel. And then just to summarize, the key advantages for stainless is that, again, it's less dependent on single-use consumables. There's minimized risk on extractables and leachables. It's faster qualification and validation due to the industry knowledge. For it being such a robust and old technology, but still reliable technology, and a lot of SMEs, not just from manufacturing themselves, but from regulatory agencies and from clients, you know the systems fairly well. And there's always other people that will know the systems as well. It's robust systems that can accommodate most manufacturing processes. You said before, single-use systems is mostly confined to mammalian, whereas with stainless steel, you can accommodate a lot of different things, such as mammalian, microbial, or even vaccine production. And based on the infrastructure, it can meet large-scale commercial volumes for blockbuster drugs and novel neurological pipelines. There's a lot of facilities out there, my company as well, that can produce at large scale. Again, the outbreak of COVID-19 and the emerging pharma trend has added significant unanticipated demand in a very short period of time. And I think that comes from when COVID-19 broke out, there was a lot of research that was being done, not just from us in the industry, but just normal people not familiar with our industry as well. And that kind of spotlighted our industry and kind of said, oh wow, there's a lot of these type of pharma groups and medical groups that are helping trying to combat COVID. And it kind of sparked this trend of, hey, we need to make sure that these companies are helping fight COVID. Okay. End the presentation. I'm just going to do a little bit of a sell for my company and how we can support you from Samsung Biologics for your tailor-made solutions for manufacturing. So in part, our facilities can accommodate 1,000 liter and up to 15,000 liter stainless steel bioreactors for services for clinical, small, and large-scale manufacturing. We have a capacity of 362,000 liters within our SBL facilities here in Korea, and we work hand-in-hand with clients to support their manufacturing needs and what they want to do with their products. We also have the availability of 1,000-liter single-use bioreactors at our single-use facility with a capacity of 2,000 liters for early-phase clinical manufacturing needs. We have flexible options to provide various services, again, single-use technology and also stainless steel. And then we also manufacture with the right scenario. We have a lot of different scales, 1,000, 5,000, 15,000, and soon to be 10,000 to accommodate the different production volumes for any given client or any given product. We have multiple capabilities, best-in-class characteristics, and equipment featuring at 1,000 liter or higher scale bioreactors and purification suites with pre- and post-viral segregation. Thank you for your time and listening. I believe now we can take any questions, and I can answer any comments or provide any feedback.
Yeah, great. We do have some time for questions, Justin. Thanks for a really informative talk. Let's see here. If you do have a question for Justin and you weren't able to get it in during his talk, now's the time you want to go ahead and do so using that question box at the bottom of your screen. So let's see, let's jump in here. We have a couple. This attendee, first question, this attendee has a two-part question. First, they would like to know if Samsung Biologics mainly manufactures using stainless steel bioreactors. And the second part is, in what cases do you manufacture with single-use systems?
Yes, so for Samsung Biologics, our main business is commercial manufacturing. So we mainly manufacture with stainless steel. This is from our 1,000 liter, 5,000 liter, 10,000 liter, and 15,000 liter scales. In the cases that we do manufacture with single-use systems, that's mostly for our early phase clinical development manufacturing. Typically, we have a CDO business here at Samsung Biologics, and then we also work with other clients in order to get their clinical manufacturing needs for early phase. So usually, typically, phase 1 and phase 2. But we do have capabilities for phase 3 and PPQs at the 1,000 liter, but that's for typically the stainless steel.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move along here. Next question, this attendee asks, has Samsung Biologics ever encountered an issue with single-use systems due to the COVID-19 supply chain disruption?
Yes, we have, and I think that's just something that everybody in the industry has been going through in terms of the COVID pandemic. When COVID initially broke out, there was obviously a lot of concern in regards to being able to secure supplies. One of the main things and driving forces that we were able to overcome a lot of these issues is that we had a very strong supply chain management team and a lot of collaboration between the different groups, from our CDO development to our small scale manufacturing, all the way up to our large scale manufacturing. And it was really all of us just working together, working with the vendors and working with our clients to kind of make sure that everybody was doing their part to make sure that the manufacturing schedules and the products that we were manufacturing made it out the door in time without any delays. Typically, we would be working with clients to figure out alternative methods or alternative consumables that we could use. And our CDO on their part too, when they're doing their development, we're moving away from customized materials and developing with more off-the-shelf items. This helped a lot as development went down the line and then it came into manufacturing. For the commercial side and for our small-scale commercial, it was really our all-stars were our supply chain management. They were the ones that were working with the vendors and securing our supplies to have them delivered in time right before we needed them. And so as we had issues, but it was pretty much a very team effort in order to overcome a lot of these issues.
Okay, great. Thank you for the explanation there. We're going to take one more question before we end today's session. And this attendee asks, in your opinion, what do you think can be done to help mitigate the effects from events like the pandemic in the future?
So I know that we should consider the pandemic an outlier and not the default in terms of how we should be doing business. However, there's a lot of things that our industry already has implemented and that we can implement even further. So I had mentioned before, we're talking about a Kanban system when it comes to materials. That's something that I think that every company should implement for their warehouse and for their manufacturing. It allows you to always maintain a supply of materials without running the risk of it expiring before it's used. So in case something does happen, say, such as the pandemic, you at least have enough supply to secure you for at least however long you set your systems up for. When it comes to like tech transfers and things like that, from what was done in the past, from my experience, you would usually try to issue materials and try to order things at the start of tech transfer. Again, I would consider having a platform system in place to make sure that you have some supplies and then you use them, and then when you do tech transfers, it's just order to replace as opposed to order for use.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. And that's going to bring us to the conclusion of today's webcast, everyone. Thank you again, Justin, for a really great talk. Thanks again to today's sponsor, Samsung Biologics. I want to be sure to check them out at samsungbiologics.com. And lastly, thank you to everybody in the audience for your attendance and participation. If Justin wasn't able to get to your question today, have no worries. He has your contact details and will follow up with you directly. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, this session will be archived for 1 year on our website, contractpharma.com. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.